thought you were asleep. Julian.
Marcus went back to his hotel an hour ago. Or so you told me when you came back from walking him out to his car.
Julian. Please. Please let me explain.
The silence in the guest house is absolute, save for the rhythmic hum of the mini fridge and the faint, low pulse of jazz drifting from a Bluetooth speaker left playing in the main suite. Julian sits on the edge of the king-size mattress, fully dressed in a crisp, white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. Between his knees, resting on the unblemished duvet, lies Clara's leather-bound sketchbook, the one she swore she left in the trunk of the rental car. His thumb traces the edge of a page that isn't blank. It is a charcoal study of a man's shoulder blades, the precise curve of a spine he recognizes with a sickening, instantaneous jolt. Marcus, 18 years of shared apartment leases, emergency hospital waiting rooms, shared beers over collapsed business ventures, and being the best man at a wedding Julian hadn't even attended yet, because his was supposed to be tomorrow. The pencil strokes are frantic, intimate, rendered with a desperate tenderness that Clara has never quite looked at Julian with, not even when he proposed beneath the olive trees in Napa. A muffled laugh echoes from down the hallway, bright, high, and unmistakably Clara's. It cuts through the quiet like a blade. Then a deeper rumble follows it. Marcus's familiar, gravelly chuckle, the one reserved for private jokes Julian was never meant to overhear. Julian's fingers tighten around the leather binding until the cardboard core groans under the pressure. His breath catches, shallow and hot his throat. He doesn't smash the lamp. He doesn't storm down the hall. Instead, very slowly, he closes the book, stands up, and walks to the window, his reflection staring back at him from the dark glass. Calm, terrifyingly hollow, and entirely altered. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. For 18 months, Julian's life has been measured in timelines, color swatches, and the gentle, domestic hum of a shared future. He is a restorer of antique clocks, a man whose entire existence is predicated on patience, microscopic adjustments, and the belief that if you clean away enough accumulated dust and align the gears with absolute precision, everything will tick in harmony again. His workshop smells of aged mahogany, brass polish, and machine oil. Every morning at 7 a.m., Clara brings him a double-shot macchiato in a cracked ceramic mug he bought in Florence, leaning against his workbench to tell him about her latest landscape commissions while her hair falls over her shoulder in messy, ink-stained curls. They live in a sun-washed cottage at the edge of town, surrounded by overgrown lavender and unruly rose bushes that Julian trims every Sunday. It is a life built on a quiet, steady rhythm. He loves the way she leaves her paintbrushes soaking in jelly jars by the kitchen sink. He loves the dependable, anchor-like presence of Marcus, who has lived down the street for 6 years, dropping by unannounced to raid the fridge or argue about football statistics. Julian's world is a clockwork masterpiece of trust, lacking only the final winding. Or so he had believed until 20 minutes ago, when he went to fetch the spare car keys from Clara's tote bag and found the sketchbook buried beneath a stack of receipt books. The bedroom door clicks open, spilling a shaft of warm hallway light across the hardwood floor. Clara steps inside, barefoot, wearing one of Julian's oversized cotton button-downs. Her cheeks are flushed with the kind of high-altitude joy that usually belongs to brides on the eve of their ceremony. She is holding a half-empty bottle of Chardonnay and 2 crystal flutes. "I thought you were asleep," she says softly, freezing halfway across the room as her eyes land on Julian standing by the window. Her gaze drops to his hands, then to the closed leather sketchbook resting on the bed. The color drains from her face instantly, leaving her skin the chalky shade of primed canvas. The wine bottle wobbles in her grip, the dark liquid sloshing against the glass. "Julian," she whispers, the lightness evaporating from her voice, replaced by a sudden, suffocating panic. Julian doesn't turn around right away. He watches the amber streetlights flicker through the glass pane, steadying his breathing. When he finally faces her, his face is remarkably still. Marcus went back to his hotel an hour ago. Julian says, his voice dangerously even. Or so you told me when you came back from walking him out to his car. Clara's lips part, but no sound comes out. The crystal flutes slip from her fingers, shattering against the wooden floor in a sharp, crystalline explosion that echoes through the quiet house. The wine pools like dark blood across the planks. "Julian, please," she chokes out, taking a halting step forward, her bare foot hovering near the shards. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Julian asks, his tone dangerously quiet. "The geometry of it? The timeline? Or the fact that while I was downstairs polishing your grandfather's pocket watch for tomorrow, the two of you were sketching portraits in the guest house? It isn't what you think." "Stop," Julian says, raising a single hand. The word carries a finality that stops her dead in her tracks. "Don't insult the last 18 years of my life with that cliché. Just tell me how long." The silence stretches, heavy and agonizing, until Clara's shoulders cave inward and she slides slowly down the wall, curling into herself on the splintered glass and spilled wine, weeping without defense. The morning sun rises sharp and merciless, casting long, geometric shadows across the empty chapel lawn. Julian sits in his parked sedan 100 yards away from the venue, watching the caterers unload folding chairs and arrange spray-painted arches of white roses. His phone buzzes continuously against the center console. Texts from his mother asking about buttonholes, automated reminders from the photographer, and 3 missed calls from Marcus with the subject line, "We need to talk before the rehearsal." He doesn't answer any of them. The betrayal isn't just an acute wound. It's a structural collapse. Every memory with Marcus, the road trips, the late-night confessions after bad breakups, the toast Marcus had spent 3 weeks drafting for today, is retroactively poisoned. At 10 a.m., the passenger door opens. It isn't Clara. It's Elena, Clara's younger sister, who flew in late last night from Chicago. She slides into the seat, wearing a sensible trench coat, her eyes red-rimmed and guarded. She takes one look at Julian's rigid posture and doesn't ask how he's doing. "She's sick with it," Elena says quietly, staring straight ahead at the windshield. "Clara hasn't stopped throwing up since 3 in the morning. Not that you care." "I care enough not to stand at an altar and lie to 200 people," Julian replies, his voice like gravel. "She made a catastrophic mistake." Elena turns to him, her voice sharpening with defensive family loyalty, though her eyes betray her own disgust. "People panic when things get real. Marriage is terrifying, Julian. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Love doesn't look like a sketchbook full of another man's body, Elena. Love is a choice you make when nobody is watching. She made hers." Julian shifts the car into drive. "Tell the guests there's no wedding. Tell the caterers to pack up. I'm going back to the workshop." By noon, the news is detonated through both families. Marcus shows up at Julian's workshop, hammering frantically on the locked glass door, his face pale and desperate. Julian watches him from a workbench through a magnifying visor, quietly cleaning the escapement wheel of a 19th century French mantel clock. He doesn't look up, doesn't unlock the door, until Marcus finally slides down the frame, burying his face in his hands on the public sidewalk. By Tuesday, the initial shock has calcified into a profound, suffocating isolation. The wedding weekend has evaporated, replaced by the tedious logistics of unraveling a life. Canceling the florist, settling accounts with the venue, and fielding sympathetic, tiptoeing phone calls from relatives who treat him like a porcelain figure about to shatter. Julian stays in his workshop 20 hours a day. He refuses to go back to the cottage. Clara has already packed her canvases and moved into a temporary sublet, but the air there still tastes like her. Instead, he sleeps on a narrow cot behind his workbench, surrounded by the rhythmic, mocking tick-tock of 100 dismembered clocks. The silence is deafening. Without the structure of the wedding preparations, Without the steady hum of human contact, Julian realizes how much of his identity was wrapped up in being the reliable one, the partner, the anchor, the man who fixed everything. He picks up a pair of tweezers to set a delicate hairspring, but his hand shakes, a fine, involuntary tremor. He drops the spring. It bounces off the workbench and disappears into the sawdust on the floor. Julian stares at the empty space where the tiny piece fell. For the first time in 3 days, the stoic armor cracks. He lets out a ragged, broken breath, his forehead dropping against the cool mahogany surface of a desk. He is 42 years old, living among the mechanical ghosts of other people's time, utterly alone. The realization doesn't make him angry anymore. It just hollows him out until there is nothing left. On Thursday evening, a soft knock sounds at the workshop door. Not the frantic pounding of Marcus, nor the hesitant tap of a family member. Julian looks up from a recalcitrant gear train. Through the frosted glass panel, he sees a silhouette he doesn't immediately recognize. It's not Clara. He walks over and unlocks the deadbolt, pulling the door open a few inches. It's Naomi, the local botanist who runs the greenhouse down the block, a woman he has exchanged polite nods with over the years when buying potted fern for his storefront window. She is holding a small, battered cardboard box wrapped in twine, wearing an oversized cable-knit sweater with soil dusted across one cuff. "I saw your lights on," Naomi says, her voice low and free of the agonizing pity everyone else has been treating him with. She doesn't mention the wedding. She doesn't offer hollow condolences. "You dropped this at the community post office last week by mistake. It was mixed in with my seed catalog delivery." Julian blinks, confused for a second, before looking down at the box. It's a parcel containing a rare, 18th century English clock dial he ordered from an auction house in Bristol months ago, a piece he thought was lost in transit. "Oh," Julian says, running a hand through his unwashed hair. "I thank you. I thought this was stolen." "Hard to steal anything in a town this size," Naomi says with a faint, sympathetic ghost of a smile. She doesn't push past him, and she doesn't offer unsolicited advice. She simply shifts her weight, her eyes warm, intelligent, and entirely clear of drama. "You look like you haven't slept since Tuesday, Julian." "Clockmakers keep strange hours," he murmurs. "There's a difference between working late and hiding out," she notes gently. She sets the box on the threshold. "If you ever want to talk about something that actually has gears you can fix, I'm boiling a pot of lentil soup next door. There's too much for one person." She turns and walks away down the dim sidewalk, her boots clicking softly against the pavement. Julian stands in the doorway for a long time, watching her fade into the twilight. The offer carries no strings, no history, no betrayal. It is just a quiet, human hand extended across an abyss. 2 weeks later, the autumn air has turned crisp, carrying the sharp scent of wood smoke and damp earth from the hills behind the town. Julian is sitting on the low stone wall outside his workshop, sipping black coffee, when a familiar figure steps out from around the corner. It's Clara. She looks thinner, her hair pulled back into a severe clip, wearing a plain trench coat with none of the artistic flair she usually affected. She stops 10 feet away, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. The space between them is charged with all the unsaid words, the apologies that came too late, and the wreckage of a shared past. "I'm moving to Seattle," she says quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "My brother offered me a studio space out there. A clean break." Julian looks at her. The fury is gone. The acute, burning agony has faded into a dull, manageable ache. What remains is simply the cold realization of truth. "I hope it works out for you, Clara," he says, his voice steady, stripped of bitterness. "Is this really how it ends, Julian? After everything?" A tear slips down her cheek, catching the afternoon light. 18 months. Did any of it matter to you? Julian stands up, walking over to the workshop window where a row of restored clocks are ticking in unison, some fast, some slow, but all moving forward under their own power. "It mattered," Julian says softly, turning to face her with a gaze that is unflinchingly honest. "Every single day of it mattered. But you didn't just break an engagement, Clara. You broke the language we built together. And I can't spend the rest of my life trying to translate a dictionary that was written in a different language. Clara closes her eyes, a heavy, shuddering sob escaping her lips. She nods once, recognizing the absolute truth in his words. She doesn't ask for another chance. She turns and walks away down the street, her footsteps growing fainter until they blend into the background noise of the afternoon. Julian watches her go until she turns the corner. He feels a sudden, profound lightness, the heavy anchor of the past finally cut loose from his chest. The workshop is warm, lit by the amber glow of a single brass desk lamp. Julian sits at his workbench, his hands steady as he uses a pair of fine-tipped pliers to seat a replacement hairspring into a vintage pocket watch. His breathing is even. The background chorus of ticking clocks no longer sounds like a mocking reminder of lost time. It sounds like a heartbeat, resilient, continuous, and moving strictly forward. The bell above the shop door chimes softly. Julian looks up. Naomi stands in the doorway, holding a fresh mug of coffee and a small paper bag smelling faintly of cinnamon pastry. She doesn't say anything. She just smiles, setting the mug down on the corner of the workbench before leaning casually against the edge of the shelf, watching him work with quiet curiosity. Julian sets down his tools, wipes his hands on a clean shop rag, and reaches for the coffee cup. As his fingers brush against hers, there is no history of betrayal, no phantom shadows of old lies, just the warm, grounding friction of the present moment. He looks out the front window as the first evening stars begin to puncture the indigo sky, realizing that some things cannot be repaired. But the pieces left behind are enough to build something entirely new.